Hey everyone, I am here with yet another roguelike game to talk to you about. This one coming into early access in the start of November, either the 7th or the 8th, depending on which part of the world you are in, and it is called Terralysia. I have to admit, when I first started playing Terralysia, I thought the graphics were a little bit randomly familiar. There was quite generic looking things to play through. However, I did not stop playing for at least an hour and a half because this game has a great hook that will keep you playing. The gameplay is crisp, it is fun, it is very addictive, and you will spend a whole lot of time leveling up, which feels really satisfying. So my name's Beggles, and I'm going to be telling you how Terralysia plays, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. Feel free to comment. So in Terralysia, you will start off as a mage in a pretty open, green, lush looking world. And very quickly you will need to use your fire mage ability and start taking out these little spiderlings. As you defeat enemies, you will level up and get the choice of upgrading or adding on different passive kind of attack, damage, vampire survivor style abilities. Unlike a lot of survivor games, you don't just have to make it to the end. In Terralysia, there are little mini quests in each world that you need to beat in order to unlock the next quest and also make it through to the boss. So essentially what you will be doing is exploring quite a large world, fighting lots of enemies that start to ramp up the longer you play, leveling up your abilities, and trying to take out gigantic demonic bosses that kind of remind me of Valheim. They are huge. It almost feels like you need more than one player to fight these bosses. Whilst you're doing this, you're also unlocking some memory shards, which allow you to gain access to new abilities, new worlds, new characters, those sorts of things. Although as this game's coming to early access, I think this is going to be tweaked a little bit, so I'll be curious to see how the unlocking works moving into an early access game. There are a number of things that keep me playing Terralysia, and the controls are undoubtedly really cool. The range of abilities and upgrades that you can unlock are awesome, and they all play differently. You have the ability to continually focus on upgrading an ability if you are lucky enough to have it as one of your upgrade options, which allows that ability to become more powerful, more impactful, and tweaks it a little bit. Extra rotating orbs around you. A black hole style bomb thing that seems to drag all the enemies from around you in, which is really cool as well. I guess the other thing to say about the controls is there's this really interesting ragdoll mechanic in which if you jump too high or get knocked up into the air, you flop down like a platforming physics game. It feels out of place, but at the same time I think it's kind of funny. And there's actually abilities which allow you to minimize that or utilize that as a damaging thing. When you start out your playthrough, you'll get some really simple spiders as your enemies, but as the time goes through, you will start to get more and more intricate enemies that have different abilities, ranging from being able to shoot projectiles at you, being able to poison you, being able to freeze you, that kind of thing. It definitely feels like a game that constantly is evolving, and you always have this bit of a tension that if you're not getting your jobs done quickly enough, you're probably going to get overpowered by these large swarms of enemies that are becoming more powerful as you play through. And that links into another thing I really like about Terralysia, which is the pacing. This is a game that you need to get to work pretty quickly. And if you don't, or if you don't have the right RNG, you can start to fall behind the power curve of the enemies, which can make it really tricky. In that way, you start to find ways that you can really jump through your levels, and you start to find different upgrades that work well together. That means that you're always just that little bit more powerful than the enemies around you. So what don't I like about Terralysia? And I guess all of these things could probably be improved before the early access or even change moving forward. There definitely needs to be some improvement around the clarity, especially in terms of the UI and the upgrades that you're doing. At the moment, I found no way in which you can actually check out things like how your healing abilities are working, how much damage certain things are doing, or even actually just sort of like check what the abilities do. I'm someone that likes to see like statistical upgrades, so I'll be curious to see whether leveling up has any impact on you. HP levels and things like that, so I think a little bit more clarity, the ability to compare the different abilities and upgrades that you've done throughout runs would make it even more fun in finding out the ways that you're going to be trying to take out those crazy strong bosses. I also think Terralysia sometimes feels a bit like a running simulator with hordes of enemies chasing you, and this links into those mini quests that you need to achieve in order to get through to the bosses, because they've often got some level of exploration or even making it to a certain zone that seems to be RNG, although there's probably certain spots where they're more likely to spawn. having to run for sort of 2 or 3 minutes to make it from one zone to the next is a little bit frustrating, especially since you don't really have the great chance of picking up the different XP runes that are dropped when you're running away from the enemies that you're clearing. The last part that I'm not a big fan of at the moment is the progression. So it took me probably 2 or 3 playthroughs to beat the first big spider boss, and upon finishing that I thought that would unlock the second world, but it doesn't actually work that way. It felt a little bit flat, finishing one level and then not getting access to the second. And as good as the different exploration memory shards are for unlocking abilities, I'm not sure if I'd want them actually being integral in terms of actually making it through to new content. As in my playthroughs, they were distractions to the main game, which was to try and get through the mini quest, try and defeat the boss, try and finish the world. Saying that, as a survivor-based roguelike in a 3D world, I think Terralysia is one of the more promising projects that I've played. I'm really curious to see if you're enjoying it as well. Let me know what you think.